Hello students, good morning everyone. So students, today we will study a new chapter from science and this is of class 4th, okay? And the name of the chapter is soil. Today we will study about soil and soil is the 5th chapter of science, okay? This is your 5th chapter. So students, let us see the contents that what are we going to study in this chapter. So students, in this chapter we will study about the formation of the soil. How is soil formed? Okay. Then composition of soil. What are the different composition of the soil? Then types of soil. Then soil profile. Then soil erosion and soil conservation. These are the topics of this chapter that we are going to study today. Okay. So now students, let us begin with formation of the soil. So now let us begin with formation of soil. What it is written in the slide? Soil is formed by the breaking down of rocks. How is soil formed? What is soil actually? Soil is the top layer of the earth's surface. What is soil? Soil is the top layer of the earth's surface, okay, which consists of sand, remains of dead plants and animals, and minerals with some amount of air and water. What is soil? Soil is the topmost layer of the earth's surface, okay, and it consists of sand, dead remains of plants and animals, along with some water and air in it. That is soil. And how is this soil formed? This soil is formed by the breaking down of rocks. When huge mountains, big rocks are broken down, then this soil is formed. And how is this mountains and huge rocks are broken down? Is it broken down by human beings? No, it is broken down by the natural factors. By the natural factors. These huge rocks or mountain, these are broken down to form soil. Understood? Then see, big pieces of rocks are broken down by the action of sun's heat, the rain and the wind. How is it broken down? By the natural factor, by the sun's heat, then the rain and the wind. And the process by which these huge rocks are broken down is called as weathering. W-E-A-T-H-E-R-I-N-G. Weathering is the process by which these huge big rocks of mountains are broken down to form soil, and the factors which is involved in breaking down the huge rocks are the sun's heat, okay, the sun's heat, the wind and the rain. These are some factors by which the soil are broken down, the rocks are broken down to form soil. Understood? The rocks are broken down into smaller pieces till it turns into fine powder. And these rocks, the huge rocks, are broken down into small pieces till it turns into fine powder. The rocks are broken down until and unless it mixes up with the soil into fine powder. Okay. The process of breaking down of rocks lasts for thousands of years, and the soil is not formed in a day or two. Not in 1 or 2 days the soil can be formed. It takes thousands and thousands of years to break a rock, to break a huge rock of mountains. It takes thousands of years, and the factors which are involved in breaking down these rocks are the sun's heat, the rain and the wind. And the process by which these rocks are broken down by the factors like sun's heat, wind and rain is called as weathering. Weathering is the process by which these huge rocks are broken down and they are turned into soil. They are formed into soil, and this process takes many long years, thousands and thousands of years it takes. Not in 1 or 2 days a soil can be formed. Understood? Then dead plants and animals also plays an important role in the formation of soil. When some plants and animals dies, they get mixed up with the soil. Okay, they get rotten down. The body of the plants and animals, it gets rotten down and it gets mixed with the soil. Later on, these dead remains of plants and animals also mix up with the soil to form soil again. Okay, then whenever the fine powder known as sand mixes with the remains of dead plants and animals called as humus and minerals, soil is formed. Minerals are found in the soil. Okay, some kinds of minerals are also found in the soil, and soil is also formed by the dead remains of plants and animals. When some plants and animals die, they get mixed up with the soil, the fine powder known as sand. It gets mixed up with the sand and later on it forms soil. And what is humus? Humus is the remains of dead plants and animals which makes the soil very fertile. Humus makes the soil very fertile. Whatever plant you grow in this humus soil, it grows very well. Okay, the soil which contains humus is very fertile. This is how the soil is formed. Understood? Soil is formed by the breaking down of huge rocks of mountains, and these huge rocks are broken down by the action of sun's heat, wind and rain. These are the natural factors by which these huge rocks are broken down into small pieces, and later on these rocks are formed into soil. The soil that you find, it is actually the small pieces of rocks. Okay, so this is the process how the soil is formed. Understood? And students, soil is also defined as the top layer of the earth's surface, which consists of sand, remains of dead plants and animals, and minerals with some amount of water and air in it. Now what is soil? How can you define a soil? Soil can be defined as the topmost layer of the earth's surface. Okay, it is the topmost layer of the earth's surface. And what does it contain? It contains sand. Okay, sand are the tiny pieces of rocks. Then it also contains remains of dead plants and animals, that is called as humus. Okay, and some minerals with some water and air in it. Soil also contains water as well as air in it. Understood? Then soil is very important for life on the earth as plants grow on soil. And why soil is very important for life on the earth? Because the plants, which are very important for human beings, they grow on the soil. Without plants, can we get food? And if we do not eat food, we will die. Yes or no? So soil is very important for life on the earth as plants grow in the soil. Understood? They produce food, gives out oxygen which is needed by all humans and animals to stay alive. Plants also takes in the harmful gases and it provide oxygen which is very useful and very beneficial for humans as well as animals. Okay, so this is how soil is very important. And soil is also home for many insects and animals. Many kind of insects and animals live inside the soil, like rabbit, mole. Yes or no? These are some animals which live inside the soil. Earthworm. These are the insects, earthworm, beetles. They live inside the soil. Soil is also home for some insects and animals. Understood? And now students, what are the composition of soil? How is soil composed? Okay. See, soil is made up of different types of soil particles. The soil is made up of different types of soil particles. And what are the different types of soil particles? Those are sand, silt, clay. What are the different types of soil particles? Those are sand, silt and clay. Okay. Now what is sand? Sand are the largest soil particles. These sand are the largest soil particles. Understood? Then what is silt? These particles are smaller than sand particles but bigger than clay particles. This sand, silt and clay are all the forms of the broken rocks. The rocks that are broken down, these sand, silt and clay are all the forms of those broken rocks by which the soil is formed. And there are different types of soil particles and these are considered to be as soil particles. And sand are soil particles which are largest. These are the largest soil particles. That means it contains stones also, pebbles also. Okay. Then what is silt? These particles are smaller than sand particles but bigger than clay particles. These are little smaller than sand particles but bigger than the clay particles. And clay, these are the smallest soil particles, very fine and very minute, very small and very minute. These are the soil particles, clay. Understood? Then other than these, soil also contains small stones and pebbles called gravel. Minerals such as iron, calcium and potassium and humus. Okay. These are along with sand, silt and clay. Soil also contains small stones, tiny stones and pebbles. You find some stones and pebbles in the soil, yes or no? Then which are known as gravel. These tiny and small stones that is present in the soil are known as gravel. G-R-A-V-E-L, gravel. Okay. And it also contains some kind of minerals which are found on the core of the earth like iron, calcium and potassium. These are some minerals which are present inside the soil along with humus. The dead remains of plants and animals are called as humus. And soil also contains some amount of air and water. Okay. Some soil also contains air and water. Air is also present inside the soil by which the roots of the plant grows. And it also contains water. If there is no water and minerals in the soil, the roots will not be able to absorb the water from the soil and the plant will not grow. The roots of the plant will not grow if there is no water inside the soil. It also needs air. We breathe oxygen, yes or no, with our nose. And these plants also absorb water and minerals from the soil to grow well. So soil also contains water and air. So these are the composition of soil. The different types of soil particles are sand, silt, clay. Sand are the largest soil particles. Silt are smaller than sand particles but larger than clay particles. And clay are the very minute and small particles of the soil. And along with these, soil also contains stones and pebbles which are known as gravel. And minerals such as iron, calcium and potassium along with humus. And humus are the dead remains of plants and animals. Okay. And soil also contains some amount of air and water. So these are the composition of the soil. Understood? And now students, what are the different types of soil? There are also different types of soil. Okay. There are mainly three types of soil depending upon the amount of different soil particles present in it. These are sandy, clayey and loamy soil. Depending upon the amount of different soil particles, the soil particles are what? Sand, silt and clay. Yes or no? These are the different soil particles, and depending on these soil particles, soil are of three types. Those are sandy soil, which contains sand, clayey soil, which contains clay, and loamy soil, which contains everything: sand, silt and clay. Loamy soil contains all these three particles of the soil, that is sand, clay and silt. Understood? Now see, what is sandy soil? This soil has a great proportion of sand particles. This soil, sandy soil, has a great proportion of sand particles. That means stones and pebbles are in good quantity in this sandy soil. Sandy soil feels rough and gritty. If you touch the sandy soil, it feels very rough. Why? Because it has stones in it. Okay, and is non-sticky when wet, and the soil is not sticky. It does not hold much water and drains most of it. Why it is not sticky? Because it do not hold water. Okay, if you pour water in this sandy soil, the soil will not be sticky. Okay, why? Because it cannot absorb the water in the soil. Can stones absorb water? No, stones cannot absorb water. Since this sand soil contains some kinds of stones and pebbles in it, and is very rough when we touch. Okay, and it is also non-sticky when wet. When water is poured into the sandy soil, it is also non-sticky. Why? Because it does not hold much water. It cannot absorb water, and it allows to drain off the water very easily. Understood? Then the next one is clayey soil. What is clayey soil? This soil has a greater proportion of clay particles. That means very minute and very fine particles of the soil. Okay, it has a greater proportion of clay particles. Clayey soil feels smooth when dry and lumpy and sticky when wet. When the clayey soil is dry, it is very smooth to touch. It is not very rough and gritty. Okay, this clayey soil is very smooth, like butter, very smooth when it is dry, and very sticky. When you pour water in this clayey type of soil, it becomes sticky. Understood? Because it absorbs the water in it. It makes the soil very sticky. And what is loamy soil? This soil has almost the same amount of sand, clay and silt. And in loamy soil, it contains sand also, it contains clay also and silt also in the same proportion. Nothing is more or less. It contains sand also, clay also and silt also. Understood? Then loamy soil is best for growing plants. It is rich in nutrients and humus and allows water to pass through easily. And why is this soil very good or best for growing plants? Because it is rich in nutrients. It contains nutrients. Since it has all the particles of soil like sand, clay and silt in equal proportion, and it is also very rich in nutrients and humus. Nutrients means the minerals like iron, potassium, calcium, okay? And humus means the dead remains of plants and animals. Everything is available in this kind of soil. And also it allows water to pass through easily. It also allows water to pass through easily. That is why growing plants in loamy soil is very best. It is considered as the best soil for growing plants. Understood? So what are the three types of soil? Those are sandy soil, clayey soil and loamy soil. Okay. So these are the main three types of soil. And see students, these are the different types of soil. Can you see the picture? Loam means the loamy soil. It contains the sand also, silt also and clay also. Sandy soil, it is very dry. Sandy means the desert soil. Yes or no? Desert soil, it is very dry and it do not retains water. That means the water cannot be absorbed in this kind of soil and no plants can grow. And the clay soil, it is very smooth when it is dry like powder, and when it is wet, it is very sticky. Okay, so these are the different types of soil: loamy soil, sandy soil and clayey soil. Understood? And now students, let us study about the soil profile. What do you mean by soil profile? Soil profile refers to the layers of soil. It refers to the layers of soil, the layer of soil. That means how many layers a soil contains, that is the soil profile. The different layers of the soil are topsoil, subsoil and bedrock. Topsoil means the top layer of the earth surface, that is the topsoil. After topsoil, the middle layer of the soil, it is the subsoil. And bedrock soil is the lowest layer of the soil. Understood? Now, what is topsoil? Topsoil is the uppermost layer of the soil and contains fine particles of sand, clay, humus, water and air. This topsoil, it contains all the essential things that is required to be in the soil. Those are sand, it contains sand, it contains clay, it contains humus, it contains water as well as air. Understood? Then what is subsoil? Subsoil, it is the middle layer of the soil present below the topsoil. Below the topsoil, there is subsoil. It is the middle layer of the soil. Okay, and it contains broken pieces of rocks. This soil, the subsoil contains the broken pieces of rocks. Understood? Then what is bedrock soil? It is the bottom layer of the soil. It is the bottom layer of the soil. Okay, and is quite deep inside the earth. It is the bottom layer of the soil and it is deep down inside the earth. It has large pieces of rocks. You will find large pieces of rocks. Okay. See students, when the soil is formed, the large pieces of rocks get settled down and the sand, the fine pieces of the soil, it keeps on increasing on the top layer and the rock particles are settled down inside the earth surface. Okay. So this bedrock is the bottom layer of the soil and it is deep inside the earth, which contains large pieces of rocks. It contains large pieces of rocks. See, can you see the picture? The first one is topsoil. Then the middle layer is the subsoil. After that, the parent rock. Parent rock means the big huge rocks, the large rocks. And then comes the bedrock. Bedrock is the soil which contains stones, rocks. Okay. So this is soil profile. Soil profile refers to the layers of the soil. The layer of the soil is known as soil profile. And the different layers of the soil are topsoil, subsoil and bedrock soil. Okay, topsoil is the uppermost layer, subsoil is the middle layer and bedrock is the bottom layer of the soil. Understood? And now students, let us study about soil erosion. What do you mean by soil erosion? The removal of the fertile topsoil by the action of wind and water is called soil erosion. Erosion means to fade away. The top layer of the soil, that fades away by the action of wind and water when there is heavy rainfall and when there is heavy wind blowing. The top layer of the soil gets eroded by these factors. This is called as soil erosion. Erosion of the soil causes the infertility of the soil because topsoil contains all the essential things that a plant need to grow. And when there is no topsoil, how will the plant grow? Yes or no? And this soil erosion means the removal of the fertile topsoil. When topsoil is removed, the soil below it becomes unfertile, where no plants can grow because it contains only what? Sandy parts and the rocky part of the soil. Yes or no? And in rocky part, no plants can grow. And the topsoil contains sand, silt, clay along with humus, minerals, all the essential nutrients that is required by the plants to grow. And soil erosion is the removal of the fertile topsoil by the action of heavy rainfall and wind, by which the top layer of the soil gets eroded, making the soil infertile. Understood? Then topsoil is very fertile because it is rich in humus. It is rich in humus means what is humus? Humus is the dead remains of plants and animals which get mixed with the soil, making the soil very fertile. It is actually a kind of manure to the soil, which is very essential for the soil, for the plants to grow in the soil. Understood? The dead remains of plants and animals get mixed up with the soil to form humus. Then strong winds and water wash away the loose topsoil, and when the topsoil is loose and when there is heavy rainfall and strong wind blowing, then these factors it removes, it takes away the soil along with it, making the soil infertile where plants cannot grow properly. Understood? This strong wind, heavy rainfall and cutting down of trees increase soil erosion. When we cut down the trees also, this also leads to the erosion of soil. The top layer of the soil gets eroded. Why? Because if we cut down the trees, the soil becomes loose. And if we plant more trees, the roots of the plant hold the soil into their roots, making the soil firm. And when there is heavy rainfall and strong wind blowing also, the soil cannot blow out easily. And when we cut down the trees, the soil becomes loose. And when the soil becomes loose, and when there is heavy rainfall and strong wind blowing, the topsoil easily gets eroded by these natural factors, making the soil infertile. This is called as soil erosion. Understood? What is soil erosion? It is the removal of the fertile topsoil by the action of wind and water. That is called as soil erosion. And this topsoil is very fertile because it is rich in humus, and this strong winds and heavy rainfall, that is water, it washes away the loose topsoil, making the soil infertile. Even the cutting down of the trees also increase the soil erosion. So these are some factors which increase the soil erosion. And what are the factors? Like strong winds, heavy rainfall and cutting down of the trees are some factors which increase soil erosion. Understood? So now students, let us study about soil conservation. Okay, what do you mean by soil conservation? Soil conservation means protection of soil from erosion is known as soil conservation. When a soil is eroded, that means the top layer of the soil gets infertile because it gets eroded by the action of wind and heavy rainfall and cutting down of the trees. Yes or no? And when the top layer of the soil is eroded, the infertility of the soil increases and the fertility of the soil decreases. That means the fertile soil where the plants can grow, it decreases, and the infertility of the soil increases. So to bring the infertility of the soil down, we conserve the soil. And how can we conserve the soil? There are different steps to conserve the soil. Okay, plants get most of the nutrients from the topsoil, and hence we can take certain steps to conserve soil. Since plants get most of its nutrients from the topsoil of the earth's surface, yes or no? The plants grow on the top layer of the earth's surface. So to conserve this surface of the soil, we can follow some steps to conserve. See, the first one is written, more number of trees should be planted to replace the ones that are cut down. The trees which are cut down, in place of those trees, we can plant new trees. Why? Because the roots of the trees hold the soil firmly, and the roots of the trees hold the soil firmly, by which the soil do not get eroded by the action of heavy rainfall and strong winds. When there is strong winds blowing and heavy rainfall, the soil do not get eroded, because when the roots of the plants holds the soil firmly, it makes the soil tighten. It makes the soil tight. It doesn't make the soil loose. Okay, loose soil gets eroded easily by the action of water and strong winds. Okay, but if you grow more trees, the roots of that plants will hold the soil firmly and tightly, and it will not allow the soil to erode easily by the action of strong winds and heavy rainfall. Understood? Then trees and bushes should be planted in open lands where there is open land with no plants and trees. Those lands should be planted with more bushes and small bushes and trees. This practice does not allow the wind to blow full force and take away the topsoil. When we grow many plants and bushes in the soil, in the open lands, then what happens? These plants do not allow the soil to blow easily by the action of wind, and it does not allow the topsoil to erode easily. That is why we must grow trees and bushes in the open lands. We plant trees and bushes in the open lands. Okay. Then flowing water can easily wash away a lot of topsoil. Yes or no? When water is flowed, when water is flowed easily, it takes away lots of soil along with it. Yes? So to stop it, dams should be constructed in the riverside areas to prevent floods. How is this flood? How does flood occurs? When the rivers and ponds get filled up with water. When there is heavy rainfall, the ponds and the rivers get filled up with water, and when this water comes out of the river bank, it takes away the soil along with it, and this results in the erosion of the soil. So if you build a dam, the water will not come out of the river and it will not carry away the soil, the top layer of the soil along with it, and it will not make the soil infertile by eroding the soil. So these are some practices that can be followed to stop soil erosion, and this practice of protecting the soil from getting eroded is called as soil conservation. Understood what is soil conservation? It is the practice to protect the soil erosion from getting eroded by the action of heavy rainfall and wind and cutting down of the trees. Understood? So students, what did we studied in this chapter? We studied about the formation of the soil. Okay. We will study some keywords related with this chapter, but before that let us revise once more. Okay, first of all we studied about the formation of the soil. How is soil formed? Soil is formed by the breaking down of huge rocks, which takes thousands and thousands of years to break down the huge rocks. Okay, and these rocks are broken down by the natural factors like the sun's heat, the rain and the wind. And this dead plants and animals also play an important role in formation of the soil. How? Because these dead plants and animals get mixed up with the soil and it forms humus. Okay, the dead plants and animals called as humus get mixed up with the soil, the minerals, and then the soil are formed. The minerals are also the substance which get mixed with the soil to form the soil. Okay, then soil can be defined as the topmost layer of the earth's surface. Why? Because it contains sand, remains of dead plants and animals, minerals with some amount of water and air in it. And soil is very important for life on the earth, as plants grow on soil and plants also provide us oxygen, food, which is very necessary by all the humans and animals in the world. And soil is also homes for many insects and animals. Yes or no? And what are the composition of the soil? Soil is made of different types of particles. Those are sand, silt and clay. These are some particles of soil by which the soil is composed. Sand are the largest soil particles. Silt are the particles which are smaller than sand but bigger than clay. And clay are the smallest and minute soil particles. Understood? And other than clay, soil also contains some stones and pebbles which are called as gravel. Okay, and it also contains minerals and humus along with water and air in it. Then there are different types of soil. Those are sandy soil, clayey soil and loamy soil. Then what is soil profile? The soil profile refers to the layer of the soil. The layer of the soil is known as soil profile, and there are three main layers of the soil. Those are topsoil, subsoil and bedrock soil. Topsoil is the top layer of the soil, subsoil is the middle layer of the soil and bedrock is the bottom layer of the soil. And what is soil erosion? The removal of the fertile topsoil by the action of wind and water is called soil erosion. Understood? Then there are different factors by which this soil can get eroded apart from strong wind and heavy rainfall, that is cutting down the trees. If we even cut down the trees, the soil gets eroded. Why? Because the soil becomes loose. Understood? Then soil conservation. Just now I told you, protecting the soil from getting eroded is known as soil conservation, and we can do it by planting more trees and bushes in the open lands. Okay, and students, we can even stop the soil erosion by building dam in the river bank, so that the water of the rivers do not comes out and take away the soil along with it. Okay, so students, now let us read some keywords that is given in your book. Okay, what is soil? The top layer of the earth's surface, which consists of sand, remains of dead plants and animals and minerals with some amount of water and air in it, is called soil. Okay, then what is soil erosion? The removal of the fertile topsoil by the action of wind and water is called soil erosion. Then soil conservation. Protection of soil from soil erosion is known as soil conservation. And what is humus? The dead remains of plants and animals mixing up with the soil is called as humus, is known as humus. Okay, so these are some keywords related with this chapter. So students, this is all for today. In the next class, we will continue with the next chapter.